Good evening, dear students. Today's session is dedicated to discuss the next half part of this subject, industrial engineering, estimation and costing. So next half part of the subject includes about estimation, knowing the empirical relations, what are all involved in the costing. So what is the meaning of estimation? Estimation is knowing of an appropriate or a probable cost that information is needed before any part is being manufactured or before the manufacturing starts. The estimation is done on the basis of quality, quantity of material, labor required, and estimation is also a predetermined cost based on assumptions and overhead expenses for an article in advance to manufacture. Estimation requires high technical knowledge about manufacturing methods, operation times. In all the organizations, estimation is done by a professional, and the person is required to have in-depth knowledge because it involves with submission of tenders. Okay, overestimation is going to increase the cost, and it is due to that the tenders may be rejected. Underestimation would be leading to heavy losses. So the estimation staff should be enough qualified and have good experience. Costing, the calculation of actual cost of an article based on the expenditures which have been incurred is known as costing. The technique and the process of ascertaining cost is known as costing. It determines the actual cost after adding the expenses that are incurred in the various departments, which is supporting the manufacturing and which is also bringing the business. The aim is to prepare the records of account showing the different items of expenditure during the production. Next is objectives of estimation. Estimation helps in setting the price, helps in filling the tender inquiries, decides whether it is better to manufacture or to purchase, decides the wages rate, which is helpful for time study engineers, decides the overheads, checks the economic feasibility of the project, determines the manufacturing time and delivery time, set the standard for cost comparison and waste control. Functions of estimation. The first function is to estimate the material cost, labor cost, calculate the cost of tools and equipments, fix the market price, determine the overhead charges, estimating the manufacturing time, time and motion study analysis, improve the improve and modify the designs, design decide the economical production method, set the standard estimation for comparison, and it also helps to decide whether to make or buy decision. Constituents of estimation. The first one is design time, drafting time, time and motion study, planning and production control, special items, design and arrangement, experimental work, materials, labor, time allowances, and overheads. Design time is the time required to design the product using the past data, or it is based on the designer judgment. Drafting time is essentially for preparation of drawings and blueprints, and it is more or less dependent on the draftman himself, and he will be charging on the hourly rates. Time and motion study, it is used to eliminate the unnecessary motions during the operations process. So this time and motion study was included in the first chapter of industrial engineering and estimation and costing. Next is design arrangement of special items, which is going to include jigs and fixture, special tools, and cost is also added to special selling price. Next is experimental work. Any modification that needs to be incorporated or any study that has to be made regarding the process is done through an experimental work, that is through research and testing for understanding or for getting the better product quality. Next is materials. Material costing is done by using drawings, volume and weight calculations, direct and indirect materials. Next is labor costing is done by time consumed by the labor to perform the operation. Next is wage rates and allowances, that could be including fatigue, tool change, and other miscellaneous allowances will also be there. Next is time allowances. Time allowances are generally setup time, operation time, tear down time, and miscellaneous allowances. Setup time itself, you can understand, it is the time required for setting up the tool, job into the machine. Operation time, it is known as cutting time or the floor time. So basically, operation time is going to consist of two elements. One of them is handling time and another one is machine time. Handling time is the time needed for the physical movement of the operator to prepare the job for machining and disposing after the machining is been over. So handling time is associated with the physical movement of the tools and disposing the material or the waste which is being obtained after a cutting operation. It is also going to include the loading and unloading process. And machine time is only associated when the tool touches the job and when the tool leaves the job. Next, we have tear down time. Tear down time is when the last element of the operation has been completed. It includes removal of tool, removal of jigs and fixture, cleaning up of chips. Basically, it involves the cleaning of apparatus so that when the next operator comes to start the machine should be in a ready to start condition. Okay. So the machine should not require any additional removal of tool for the new operation. It may take 10 to 15 minutes on an average. Next is miscellaneous allowance. It is not possible for any work to continuously perform for 8 hours. He needs to have some break. So first is the personal allowance. Personal allowance could be attending the nature calls, smoking or tea break. That is 5% of total working time. Next is fatigue allowance. So worker cannot perform the work with the same speed as the days go, as the day continues. So the fatigue is also going to grow. So due to that, due to the reasons for fatigue would be continuous work, machine noise, poor lighting system, ventilation, domestic worries. All these could be the reasons for fatigue. So for fatigue, 5% of total time should be taken into consideration. Next is tool changing and grinding time. So after when the operation has been completed and next tool has to be mounted in the machine or the tool changeover has to be done, then 5 to 10% of the total time has to be allotted. Even sometimes when a machining operation has been completed and the tool life has been lost. So in order to sharpen the tool edge, the grinding has to be performed. So when the grinding is being performed, it is going to have 10% or 5 to 10% of the time. Next is measurement and checking allowance. So when the workpiece is being manufactured or any machining operation is being performed on the machine on the workpiece, so it is the responsibility of the worker to check the dimensions and to know the correctness. Okay, so this is going to have 2 to 3% of the total time taken. And there are other allowances which are also included, the certain activities which may not be included in the operation cycle. These activities are periodic, which could involve cleaning, oiling, delivery of jobs, disposing of scrap, excess stock, or that is 15 to 20% of the time may be given as an allowance to the operator when the operator is not provided with any kind of an helper to perform these activities. Moving to next one, that is overheads. So overhead is an expenditure that cannot be definitely charged to any particular product during the operation. The possible reasons for overhead expenses are indirect material cost, that could be the cost of material which is going to help to perform the manufacturing operation. That could be cost of grease, that could be liquid, that could be some form of coolants, okay, or cotton waste or light or water. Next is indirect labor staff, that is salaries of supervisors, designers, research staff workers, helpers and watchmen. These people are not at all involved directly into fabrication of material. These people will be providing assistance or information to the operators who are performing an operation. Next is administrative overheads. The salaries of the officers, salaries of the working staff in the office, and the expenses related to telephone, telex, insurance. Next is selling overheads. Selling overheads is the expenses due to the salaries of salesmen, expenditure, and the expenses on advertisement or marketing. Next is Next overhead would be depreciation. Depreciation would happen on a building where the premise for the premises. Next could be furniture which is being used. Next is equipment repair, maintenance charges. Depreciation also includes for an equipment, the equipment is going to have wear and tear. So this wear and tear also needs to be included in the depreciation. Other expenses, if any, may also be added in these overheads. So for the purpose of estimation, these overheads may be allocated on the basis of percentage rate, hourly rate, unit rate. The expenses are to be considered in estimating the cost of the product. Next is comparison between estimation and costing. Estimation is knowing the cost before the production, and this is after the production. It is done by engineers, and this is costing is done by the accountants. It is helping to forecast the profit, and it shows the actual value of profit and loss. It fixes the selling price, and this is going to help in budgeting. This is the basis for comparison, and this controls in the wastage. Moving to next topic, that is costing. So cost is the total expenditure incurred in manufacturing a product. So the selling price of the product is dependent on the cost, quality and market demand. Objective of costing is to know the selling price, reduce the wastage, prepare the budget, make a decision whether to fabricate or buy. Next is decide the discount provision and compare the estimated and the actual cost. The elements of costing are materials, labor, and expenses. Under materials, we have direct materials and indirect materials. Direct material could be mild steel rod, which is used for fabricating the bolts, cast iron blanks for gears, or brass rod. These are the consumables, direct consumables. Okay. So on these materials, the actual operation is being performed. Next is indirect materials. They are not involved in the production, but they are going to increase the speed of production or decrease the speed of the production. Example could be lubricants, cotton waste, belt fasteners. Okay. This is associated with increasing the speed of production or performance. Next is calculation of direct material cost. So the steps involved is, first is to study the drawing, next is break into different shapes, next is to calculate the volume of each of these shapes and find the weight and multiply it by the cost. Next is other element is types of labor. Types of labor is direct labor and indirect labor. Direct labor, the workers who are directly involved into the production and operation, and the indirect labors are the supervisors or helpers. So these people will be supporting the workers through giving some information or by checking if any corrections are needed in the production, or any material which is being fabricated, any corrections are to be done. So they will be even doing some inspection as well. Randomly, on the random basis, it is being done. Direct labor will be doing the investigation or inspection on the periodic basis, but the indirect labor could be doing it on the random basis. Okay. Next is direct labor costs, that is wages paid to the direct workers. And allowances could include setup time, operation time, tear down time, and miscellaneous time. That is due to personal allowance or fatigue allowance or tool change allowance. Next is expenses. Expenses could be happening due to advertisement, rental expenses, transportation, that is due to logistic, packaging, salaries. And the types of expenses are direct and indirect expenses. Direct expenses are chargeable to the product. It could be examples of special tools and fixtures and jigs, patterns, and experimental cost, which is also involved with knowing the, or in order to know the, in order to optimize the production process, or in order to optimize the design. So even that cost is also included in the direct expenses. Indirect expenses are nothing but the overheads, which is due to factory administration, selling, and distribution. Factory overheads are indirect labor, rent, power, and depreciation. Depreciation could happen on the furniture which is set up in the administration office, or which is there in the factory as well. Next is administrative overheads are office salary, telephone or telecommunication expenses, and insurance. Next is selling expenses. Selling expenses involves with the advertisement, which is in marketing activity, and after that the sales staff will be receiving the salary. That is also another additional expense. Next is distribution expenses, which involves the logistics, that is transportation, packaging, and storage. That is inventory storage will be there. Finished inventory will be there, as well as raw materials inventory will be there. These all will be taken into account. Examples of overheads. Factory overheads is going to include the wages of indirect labors, canteen expenses, insurance, rent, lighting, power, machine depreciation, lubricants, telephone charges, transportation, ideal time cost, especially when the breakdown has happened. So even for the breakdown, the labor has to be paid. Okay. Next is manager salaries. Administration overheads is going to include office rent, office electricity, bank charges, telephone, insurance, stationery, legal expenses, and office staff salaries. Next is selling overheads. Selling overheads could include the salaries of sales managers, salesmen, and other sales staff. So, in order to sell, they will be traveling, the traveling expenses and the commission should be given to the salesman. Along with that, advertisement, showroom expenses, printing of catalog and price list, which is the part of marketing activity. Next is telephone and postal charges for the sales, legal charges incurred for the recovery of debt, rebate to customers, marketing, market research, cost of preparing the tenders, cost of consumer service and after sales service, and cost of demonstration is also included. Distribution expenses includes packaging and carriage charges, go down rent, insurance on the finished goods in the go downs, wages of dispatch, clerk and labor, expenses on delivery vehicle, repairs and depreciation, cost of transportation of goods, cost of loading and unloading. Fixed and variable overheads. So fixed overhead and variable overhead, from the keyword itself we can understand this is going to be constant and they are not going to change with the production volume. That could be salaries of supervisors, engineers, officers, depreciation of machine and equipment, rent on building, insurance charges, and interest on capital. Whereas variable overhead is going to include fuel and power charges. As and when the production increases, these charges also accumulates. Repair and maintenance. Due to prolonged operation of machines, definitely the machines would be requiring intense repairs as well as maintenance schedule. Next is storage expenses, and next is consumable materials and tools. So with the increase in production and with the increase in output, all these parameters are going to increase. So observation is that fixed overhead is going to be constant, whereas variable overhead is proportional to production output and it reduces cost per unit and increases the profit. Basically, this is going to give us an optimization. Next is introduction to s- selling price. That is, to estimate the selling price, all the expenditures in a factory should be included. No expenses should be left out. So, selling price is the price paid by the customer and it is fixed by adding the profit to the total cost. Components of cost are primary cost, factory cost, office cost, and total cost. Primary cost is summation of direct material cost, direct labor cost, and direct expenses. And next is total cost. Total cost, sorry, factory cost is summation of primary cost and factory expenses. And office cost is summation of factory cost and administrative expenses. And total cost is office cost. Selling price is summation of total cost and profit together. And market price is selling price plus discount. Or this is also called as catalog price or list price. So if you try to understand the hierarchy, selling price is equal to total cost plus profit. And total cost is summation of office cost and selling and distribution expenses. Office cost is equal to factory cost plus administrative expenses. Next is prime cost Next is factory cost. Factory cost is prime cost plus factory expenses. And the last one is prime cost, which is summation of all the direct cost. Direct cost could be material cost, direct material cost plus direct labor cost plus direct expenses. So please remember this hierarchy. Here you could find, you can start with selling price. Total cost is again a component of that. Office cost is once again the component of total cost. Factory cost is the component of office cost. And prime cost is the component of factory cost. And prime cost is going to include direct material cost, direct labor cost, and direct expenses. Now let's see the numerical based on these formulas. This is the formula list. You can refer it. Let's see the question. A certain product is to be manufactured in the batches of 200. Direct material cost for this batch is found to be 50 rupees. Direct material cost DMC, which is equal to 50. Direct labor cost DLC, which is equal to 60. Overhead expenses is equal to 40 rupees. Or this is also factory expenses. Okay. So what will be the selling price of each product to earn the 15% of the profit? So first is we need to calculate selling price or selling expenses. Selling expenses is 50% of the factory cost. So factory cost will be equal to summation of direct material cost, direct labor cost, and direct expenses or factory expenses, which is equal to 50 plus 60 plus 40, that is equal to 150. Next is selling expenses is 50% of the factory cost, that is 150 into 50 by 100, which is equal to 75. Next is selling price is equal to factory cost plus selling expenses. Factory cost is 150 plus selling expenses is 75. This is equal to 225. And here they have mentioned profit should be 15%. Profit is 15% of selling cost. Profit equal to 15% of selling cost. So 15 into 15 by 100 into 225. This comes out to be as 33.75. Now, selling price of 200 articles, that is equal to factory cost FC plus next is selling price plus profit. Factory cost is 150. Selling expense I need to add over here. Sorry. Selling expense is 75 rupees and profit is 33.75. So this comes out to be as 258.75. Next is cost for each item. Selling price of one article, that is equal to 258.75 divided by 200 articles is been produced, and that is equal to 1.30 rupees. Next question. Find the factory cost of a component made out of solid steel bar 5 centimeter long and 2 centimeter in diameter. The machining requires 1.5 hours. Assume the data. Density of mild steel is 8 gram per cc. Cost of mild steel is 10 rupees per kg. Labor charges are 8 rupees per hour and overhead charges are 50% of the direct labor cost. First is we need to compute the weight of material. Weight of material is equal to volume into density. Volume is pi by 4 d square into L and density is 8 given. So pi by 4 into diameter is 2 centimeters. 2 square into length is 5 centimeters into 8. So this is pi by 4 into 2 square into 5 into 8. So if we calculate this in kgs, that is if we divide this by 1000, this would be equal to 0.125 kgs. Direct material cost will be equal to 0.125 into cost of mild steel is 10 rupees per kg into 10. That is 1.25 rupees for this much quantity. That's closer to 125 grams. Next is direct labor cost. That is 8 rupees per hour. So operating time here is 1.5 hours. So 1.5 hours into 8, and that is equal to 12 rupees. Labor charges, yeah, that has been completed. Next is overhead charges that are 50% of the labor cost. That is 50 by 100 into 12, which is 6 rupees. So factory cost will be equal to direct material cost plus direct labor cost plus direct expenses or overhead expenses. And that is 1.25 plus 12 plus 6, which is 19.25. So these were few numericals from the estimation topic. We will come up with more number of questions in the upcoming sessions. If you find this session as helpful, then hit the subscribe button and stay tuned with our channel. Thank you and good night.